as is frequently the case with anything new. People are very much against immigration of various ethnic groups at the turn of the century. Chinese and Irish were targets in this time period. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 restricted entrance of an entire race into America. The Immigration Act of 1917 attempted to prevent the illiterate, feeble-minded, and homosexuals from entering the country. There is a word for this opposition to immigration. It's called nativism, and it's generally the result of people who live in a country worrying that immigrants will spoil existing cultural values. Now, during this time period, Asians specifically were coming to America because life at home in China and Japan wasn't really all that good. In fact, there was slavery and abuse and all those things that were normal occurrences. When they got the chance to go to America, they took it. In America, this was a huge immigration of Asians that came from China, Japan, all Asian countries over to America, and they didn't want anything to do with any immigration really, because of World War I going on foreign soil. They wanted to stay neutral, and they didn't want anyone coming in, no matter if they were in the war or not in the war, whatever it was. They didn't want immigration. Now, this causes problems for people that were coming from Asia, because they wanted to come in and start a new life and get it easy, but a lot of them were turned away because most of them didn't speak or read English, and there was literacy tests, and that took a huge chunk out of who could go into the U.S. Now, on the other side of the world, we have Europeans trying to get into America because of the war. Now, if we rewind a bit, Franz Ferdinand, June 28th, 1914, is assassinated, and that sparks a bunch of hate and a bunch of fighting all over Europe. And most people who weren't in the war needed to get out of there, because who wants to live in an area where there's a war zone going on? Well, a lot of them tried to come to America, and surprise, surprise, there were already a bunch of Asians immigrating, and there were literacy tests, and there was a 3% cap on immigration from Asian and European countries, which means most of them got turned away, especially not because of the cap, but because most of them didn't know how to read and write English. There was also discriminations against homosexuals, feeble-minded, illiterate, everyone who couldn't read, speak English, who wasn't considered normal at the time. This meant a great deal of Europeans that tried to immigrate. They had to go back to Europe because they had no other choice. They weren't accepted in American society, which means that now America kind of looks bad for turning people away, making them go back to a war zone that they live in, because they want to stay neutral in the war.
The reasons for this were sometimes kept out of radicals who might want war or project jobs held in the U.S. In the 1890s and 1920s, their concern about culturally protecting the Union's campaign to immigration restriction. One way they hoped to restrict people was the literacy test, and the Immigration Commission was reformed immigration. The results of their studies led to additional research, such as Immigration Act of 1924, the Johnson-Reed Act, which limited the number of new immigrants from one country exceeding 2% of the population from country that was already here. It seems that people always wanted to feel that they're special and that others were inferior.
In conclusion, America shut itself out of immigration to stop itself from having foreign influences and to stay neutral during World War I. The main idea of this was that they never wanted to join the war in the first place, and shutting themselves out of immigration would help them stay neutral in the war.